Ladies and gentlemen, David Newton.
Fantastic, thank you. So I've called it Making Marketing Matter. And just to give a little bit of flavor before we jump in, I'm going to talk for about 20 minutes or just a few more to give a bit of context and hopefully inspire a couple of questions, as you say, from the group. 18 months ago here at Philips, we started a marketing transformation, really with a mission to accelerate our capabilities to drive to a truly consumer-driven future state. I mean, we've always talked about consumer at the center, most marketing departments and companies do, but to really work out how structurally it would look, as well as in terms of our communication output, to put consumer at the center of everything we did. And that's really in the journey we've been on for the last 18 months. The journey we've been on, I'm going to give you 5 minutes before I jump into a couple of sort of communications case studies. As you say, I look after creation, strategy, and production teams at Philips on the consumer marketing side of the Philips global organization. There is also health systems, and I'll tell a little bit, a 5-minute intro about how the overall transformation is happening for Philips, moving from what is an innovative consumer goods company and being famed for that in the past towards a real pioneer in health technology, as well as a consumer goods company, and how we've learned on the 18-month journey some good learnings on the way. As we go that, like all marketing transformations, I think it's fair to say, it's a rich journey. It's an ongoing journey of successes, learnings, and refinements as we go. And I'm going to share and invite you a little bit into the kitchen with a couple of examples I hope are of value to show how that journey's worked in terms of our external supplier setup, in internal structure, and the nature of the output that we're trying to move towards to really make marketing matter. So, to jump in, a little bit of context on Philips overall. The purpose of the Philips brand, Philips is 130 years old this year, founded in 1891. A brief history lesson, started off making electric light bulbs, right the way through an incredible sort of history of innovation, right the way through from inventing the cassette, the rotary shaver, the compact disc with Sony in the late 70s, the air fryer Philips invented in 2010, One Blade more recently, a great shaving product. So a huge track record of innovation. And actually we're about the 50th biggest brand. We hover around 50 in terms of brand strength globally, 80,000 people in over 100 countries. So a really, really big organization and one with a sort of proud lineage of innovation. What's interesting at the moment for us is, and a unifying principle is this idea of creating meaningful innovation that improves people's lives. And whilst technologies come and go, actually the journey Philips is on is really to become a little bit more of a health tech pioneer, as well as having an incredibly strong consumer business. And there's a little film I'm going to play next to give you a flavor of that.
Wherever there is life, there are always ways to make it better. In the first breath, and getting your breath back. On the frontiers of discovery, and behind each small step. From the end of an era to the beginnings of a second chance. And it's right there where you'll find us. In the world's biggest cities, and in places you didn't know were on the map. We exist between staying alive and kicking. We are between your healthy appetite and your healthy smile. Between your good night and your wake up sunshine, it's a brand new day. We're navigating health as it is. And through innovation, we're setting its destination. Until we arrive at the place where there's care for everyone. Because wherever there is life, we're there, finding ways to make it better. There's always a way to make life better. Philips.
Great. So, and hopefully give you a flavor there of the purpose of always making life better, driving everything we do through innovation. How the company's structured, I look after consumer marketing, the personal health side of the business. And we talk a lot about Philips at the healthcare continuum, which is whether it's healthy living of personal health products, such as the Philips Sonicare business and oral healthcare, the mother and childcare business, personal care in terms of shaving, beauty, and grooming. That's the area that we look after. But the real direction of travel in terms of some of the key growth and also what the brand is looking to be famous for sits in diagnostics and connected care, and really an end-to-end state of the connected consumer health continuum. And so you've got precision diagnostics, you've got connected care growing hugely at the same time that we are having a strong and sustained consumer lifestyle positioning. So to summarize it visually, the journey we're on is to really maintain our strength in those 100+ markets in terms of our consumer lifestyle and really mattering with that purpose and positioning there, as well as building our leadership in health technology, both to consumers and healthcare professionals. It's a fascinating transformation journey for the company, and one that provides its own challenges, but also is really a unique space for Philips to show its DNA and its credentials in. Maybe just to bring that to life visually, some of this work is really core to that health tech purpose. Some amazing stories internally at Philips that we've discovered and actually resulted in us being the sort of 15th best reputation company last year during the pandemic in terms of facilitating healthcare to disadvantaged communities, to helping healthcare professional workers, to really enabling care and access to care to become a North Star. But in reality, one of the challenges is in the consumer's mind, we're often known much more for this work. And actually, whether it's licensee work for audio-visual and TVs and headphones, which is actually a licensing part of our business, which has been run by a separate division, or whether it's the consumer categories that my team look after in terms of doing their strategy and communication, in terms of the beauty, oral healthcare, and shaving categories that we've talked about. But actually, that is the thing that the Philips has in the consumer mind, and something that we're really working to evolve in our marketing transformation, to bring those two worlds together. And so that marketing transformation, now there were a lot of aspects to a marketing transformation, as they are in all brands, but I think I've called out 4 here that I really wanted to talk to in the 2 examples I'll come on to. So shifts in our marketing and communication approach driven by 4 key pillars. Firstly, a distinctive brand, and I'd summarize that a little bit by what you've just seen. How do we move from a trusted, authentic, safe, but not necessarily pioneering or passion-driven brand to something that really gets the credentials for a lot of the work we do in the health systems, and indeed overall side in terms of some of the sustainability initiatives and a lot of great work. And actually, that's not what we're famous enough for at the moment. So there was a real belief during marketing transformation that we needed to get the magic of what we were doing internally out. The second was really how to make consumer a genuine first thing. And we actually went as radical. It became a bit of a mantra during our marketing transformation to talk about consumer, then brand, then business. Because at Philips, we are a very well-run, expert product launch company, but actually to really drive and look at the portfolio of what we offer through the lens of the consumer is something that we saw an opportunity to restructure and engineer ourselves to do better on. Thirdly, valued experience. I think it's fair to say, and maybe many marketing companies will be familiar with this, is you were moving from a world of campaigns to a world of consumer experience. And that's not to leave or to lose the impact of marketing campaigns and bought media and everything that we're good at, but to really understand the power of the experience and a little bit of what we've been hearing this morning in terms of the predictive, the social listening, the ability to respond to a consumer that is evolving at a pace that we were not familiar with in years gone by. So that was also a key pillar. And lastly, what we talk a little bit is about the art and science. So back to this point on making sure that we don't lose the greatness of what we do in terms of being distinctive and really having a strong point of view, the art of actual, breakthrough communication that goes beyond media dollars, but also really understanding our data-driven capabilities, which, like many companies, I think can be fragmented or actually are driving the learnings are driving a certain aspect of the marketing flywheel, but not necessarily the end-to-end, or at least not at the speed that is potential. So bringing the art and science together is something we talk a lot about internally. So let me give you a couple of examples of how those have manifested. And I'll talk firstly about how we structured the team after this, or I worked with my team to structure them alongside those marketing initiatives. Firstly, although from the consumer experience point of view, one thing we realized was actually the disciplines that we needed internally in terms of capabilities, as well as with our agency partners, were actually beneficial to break out. And so launch is something, as I mentioned, that we've done for many years at Philips, and have actually developed a pretty sophisticated engine about how we do that with our markets and our regions and how a global toolkits. But how do we do that with more distinctive, insight-led, end-to-end focus? The second pillar, or capability pillar, that we built a new team and indeed looked at our agency setup for, was what we called Engage. And that was really about what happens when we really flip the engine and start to look in specific need states from an audience or consumer through their lens to offer the best of Philips to them, rather than individual propositions or categories. And for that, as I mentioned, we structured the team to really look at that as a unique discipline, and how we, obviously the art then is to bring those two worlds together in terms of the consumer view, but to also recognize that structural capability in terms of the skill sets that were needed. And lastly was something that goes across everything we do. We talked a lot about how we get reactive in a positive way. And I think COVID, like many marketing organizations, 2020 was a crazy year where we were reactive through necessity. And actually, whether that was about, shifting to D2C and shifting our focus online, the ability to change content and campaigns in and out at high pace, depending on stock supplies, or shifting consumer demands. Who knew that hair clipper sales were going to go 600% as everyone tried to cut their own hair, as I'm proudly demonstrating? But a real need to react and bring that sort of pillar and comfort and capability to move quick in certain areas in. And the last thing we talked about was really ensuring, and we're on this journey at the moment, a workflow and content management tool that would help us do this end to end. So rather than it being, launch and leave and playbook models with an activation team and then to market and having that sort of slightly linear flow, really needing tooling that was going to help us to do that. And I'll give you a little bit of a, as I say, invite you into the Philips kitchen of how that looks. We actually looked at our agency setup as well. So, and I know the Oliver team are here today. So within Launch, we have an established way of working with WPP and Cara, but we also brought in an agency partner who was really I'll talk about them a little bit in a minute, called Genie, who was actually our piloting, working directly with creatives and a production company to see if we could improve efficiency where speed to market was absolutely critical. When we looked at engagement, we looked at what we needed from our agency partners and actually in our internal setup. And actually where we had gaps in terms of the internal team without the ability to pull in, endless new headcount, we needed a partner who got Philips in a unique way, who were experienced at breaking down silos within companies and could actually, a strange thing to say in-house, but actually it was more of a capability that they would be able to understand the organization of Philips, which is a highly complicated matrixed organization globally, and work with an internal team to accelerate our change of data capabilities, agility in this area of actually going consumer first at pace. And all held together, as I mentioned, we've actually just recently appointed Sprinkler, who are being onboarded at the moment as our end-to-end workflow and content management tool, which the teams, which will be a great addition and value. But as I say, we're at the start of that journey to really work out the benefits of what the social listening, calendar planning, and single view end-to-end will bring to Philips in terms of our marketing planning. I keep wanting to say next slide, and then I remember it's me. So excuse the pauses. So when it comes to the launch piece of this, suffice to say, we did more distinctive work. You'll have to trust me. I'm not going to dwell on too much on it, but we really put a focus on breakthrough, distinctive modernization of the brand to actually take us towards a more sort of pioneering, progressive mindset. As I mentioned, one thing I think is interesting for the community, we had a very good learning with working directly with creative directors and creative leaders through this app. It's an AI-powered app called Genie. And they were actually able to source creative, top creative talent working directly with my marketing team to produce content quickly, at a scale, iteratively, and actually more efficiently at lower cost. Now, it comes with a caveat. I mentioned this actually as a learning that you really need to understand, although it's very, very strong to work that way, the conditions need to be right. And you need a team with high levels of creative literacy, a lot of client dedication, in order to really make that a success. But when we did it, and we picked the right projects like the Sonicare one Philips example in the bottom right corner, which was a real speed to market project, it worked excellently. And so that was a really interesting learning for us at Philips to know when we could work directly with production and creative talent, and when we needed our large agency of records and networks to really power the bigger launches. I'm going to play one example of a launch film where we moved quick, and I chose this one actually partly because it was on air the other day over here in Holland, and it captured the spirit, I think, of lockdown in the back end of last year and the start of this. Hopefully that will play.
Life moves fast. Slow it down. The easiest way to savor moments. Philips 5400 Latigo. Together we make life better. Innovation and you, Philips.
So the ability to move quick was essential, and that was just an example, as we often do, and we focus on the film or the telly or the online video, but actually the real story of the launch improvements as our marketing transformation was the end-to-end discipline. And actually using tools such as Miro and online virtual boards to really map through the consumer journey in a level of sophistication and optimization that we hadn't done in the past. As I talk about moving from a sort of launch and leave toolkit approach to really one where we see performance, whether it's on owned platforms or paid media to optimize in real time, was a great learning for us last year. With the added bonus of trying to do that all virtually, including virtual shoots, obviously. But a rich year of learning despite the challenges of lockdown. And I think the sophistication of this discipline and some of the results we see from campaigns when we get this right are great to build from. So enough on the launch side. That was sort of improving what we did already. And then I'm going to deep dive a little bit and finish up with the idea of this engaging with value. When we really flipped consumer first philosophy, when we really went deep with the consumer and worked out and asked ourselves the question, how do we show the very best of Philips when we have a discrete consumer audience need, as well as this sort of very clear purpose of driving our health tech sensibilities at a brand level that we want to do more with. So engage with value. We picked an audience called first-time parents. Now, we have a great deal of equity in mother and childcare category. The Philips Avent brand is pretty well known. But actually, where we really wanted to zone in on and we saw the opportunity is the audience where actually first-time parents, and I speak from experience in the relatively recent past, is where you really look for brands and for help and for support, be that from healthcare professionals, be from midwives, from your peer group, and indeed from brands to help you through what is a journey to really, get you through the first, what we often term the first 1,000 days of the maternity or pregnancy journey. First-time parents as well, not just mothers. And I think that's the other thing in this category. Dads were largely underrepresented, and actually a real determination to be in line with the consumer to reflect the fact that actually the role at home of the dad and the father was actually far more sophisticated than it had been in the past, as well as looking at what modern parenting really looks like. And you can say we have a same-sex couple, and really we used real couples with real children and all the joys of that, from real babies, real couples, authentic production and casting, both from, yes, it's efficient to do that, but from a real authentic view in terms of how we approach this. And we also looked, to bring our brand purpose and principles to life. And the last thing we looked at was something we haven't really done a huge amount before in terms of cross-category solutions. So bringing together the best of Philips, whether that's in floor care or sleep therapy or wake-up lights, as well as baby bottles, baby monitors, breast pumps, and the things that the mother and childcare category does so well. So our goal was to understand, and going with some hypotheses about how we could best engage this key audience through relevance and a holistic view of what we do as a company to support them. So our approach, maybe no surprise, was to go really deep on the consumer. Nothing new here, you could say, but actually we did this, I guess, at a level of sophistication with our partners at Oliver, who we brought in midway through last year. And one of their first projects with us was working on this and did an excellent job to really go through what we knew already, but also to bring in a view of the behaviors online that were true of the platforms they lived on, the performance of our app. Actually, we have an app called Pregnancy Plus, which has 8 million install base. So it's a huge resource for us. And actually to wire that ecosystem together in terms of the consumer journey, to build from a rich consumer insights we had from the category, as well as aligning them with our brand purpose and pillars. Where did we really have a right to play and talk to the consumer? And a great learning, I think, there, for example, half of the miracle of this really was to work out what we shouldn't do as much as what we should. So should we have a point of view on the moment of labor in the consumer journey of first-time parents? Possibly not. Although we make the scanning equipment, monitoring equipment in the hospital, we could, but actually this is a moment where our point of view from personal health doesn't feel as rich. Whereas actually things around topics of body positivity, an authentic view of nutrition and getting mum to feel good again with mental health were things that really resonated, and we felt we had a right to talk positively in where it aligned with our brand purpose, as well as what the audience was looking for. This took us to a content strategy of mapping that together with the 5 key moments and need states. And we called this our engagement journey. We looked at the passions, so what you might call upper funnel, the real needs to catch the consumer, as well as answering specific needs through questions they might have, giving them professional advice, as well as closing the deal with conversion assets and showing the best of our products and innovation to serve them. But actually, product almost as a secondary KPI and conversion versus really engaging and mattering to the consumer. And we were fascinated to see how this would work. We went live in DAC. DAC is our shorthand for Germany, Austria, and Switzerland, the start of this year. And we developed content that we had content at every stage of the consumer journey. And I've kept it in, we're showing the examples of the German one there, reflecting the shock of the moment of discovery. For many, or maybe not, that you're pregnant, you might have been trying for years. And we had couples talking about the variety of reactions to discovering pregnancy, of joy, elation, shock, through to the coping, the surviving, the new routines of life, etc. These performed incredibly well. We were surprised, actually. And actually, we had view-through rates exceeding what we'd done in normal, many of our product launch videos, between 20 and 46% on YouTube, which was really pleasing to see, as well as actually surprising high click-through rates. So as I said, it was a sort of secondary KPI to say, would these perform in terms of clicks and conversion? But actually, what it showed was actually 40-second films even had higher levels of engagement and view-through than had expected, or we'd get from purely maybe more product or commercial-led work. The ecosystem was really important. The activation plan, obviously leveraging owned and really making sure our own platforms of D2C, CRM were hardwired in to the plan in ways that we hadn't always done with a level of sophistication in the past on product. Working with Ekta Mama, which was a key influencer or source of authenticity in the German marketplace for first-time parents, as well as using, I think the key thing here is using our Pregnancy Plus app. We're talking a little bit about insights and predictability, but using we had 600,000 new users in Germany last year alone using the Pregnancy Plus app, and using that community to both gather insights, but also to test content before it went live was incredibly valuable to driving performance. We also ran brand films, or really played, stories that were the things that are often not promoted historically at Philips with the media monies of our product communication, and really to see what would happen if we put these stories of how we donated 1,000 baby monitors to hospitals, or how the story of unhealthy gums can lead to premature births, which is why we sent out Sonicare packs to disadvantaged groups in North America. Stories that are really sort of purpose-led to see what they would do and how they would perform. And it was delighted to see actually that brand messaging really performed, with people actually viewing this messaging, over 1.5, 2 times more likely to convert and actually be open to communication on products. That was really pleasing for us to see. And again, these are very early learnings. The campaign's been live for a few months, but I thought great to see that purpose matters to people, or at least to the first-time parents audience, and enabling us to tell the story we've always wanted to. We did some great work with midwives, and we actually promoted some of the health and most frequently asked questions we find in search into paid ad units, which we know first-time parents are looking, so targeted to where they were by looking at the lookalikes from our Pregnancy Plus app, find those people in social, and to give them great advice on how they can help themselves through the first-time parent journey and have a better experience of mental health, breastfeeding, a lot of the key topics that we see come up in search within this group, and also offering a cross-category solution. So bringing products in a background, not leading with product, but really installing dynamic advertising where we offer the best of Philips, be that the apps, be that looking after yourself in terms of skincare and a Lumea product, be that keeping the house hygienic with floor care and vacuum cleaners. So really bringing the best of Philips to life. And that was interesting. I think there were some learnings there, and we found actually as a throwaway content that actually it worked very well when we had content which reflected, as you can see in some of those images, pregnant mothers or parents using the products, but where we use more generic images of products such as the Lumea thing, or content we'd repurposed from product launch campaigns, it performed less well. So people really were expecting in this area a field of relevance to connect with them if you were going to make cross-category propositions sing. What were the 4 big learnings? It's a big marketing transformation. I've deep dived into a couple of topics. I'll go through the 4 pillars based on what we talked about a bit earlier. Firstly, organize to tell the best of the brand. And I think that's something we hadn't always done at Philips. The internal magic had not always surfaced into what we did on our own platforms and paid media. And actually great to see that stuff matters to the consumer as much as it matters to us. Secondly, outside in and bringing the consumer in. Understand the relevance that matters. Now, I think there are some early learnings that hyper-personalization may not be absolutely required to really drive performance. Although it's something we talk a lot about internally, relevance needs to be done in the right area. And I think those journeys, to give an example on that last example, we talk about the 1,000-day journey, but when you really boil it down, the first-time parent journey, there are 5 key matters or need states that matter most. So it's relevance that matters, not relevance or personalization as a buzzword. Valued experience to create momentum. These are big journeys. A company of 80,000 people globally, you have to create momentum. And in a big company like Philips, you need to pick key journeys, whether that's on launch products and doing the end-to-end piece brilliantly, or a pilot for first-time parents. The learning is really don't try and do it all in one go. And we really focused on doing key journeys with success, with good KPIs, before we had the confidence to want to scale it, take it to China, take it to other markets to really make it the mass scale that we want and they're able to do as a global organization. And my last point is to partner to facilitate integration and capability gaps. You need the right agency and supplier thinking. And I think, we probably all in marketing have headcount limits. If we didn't, maybe we could build huge internal teams and we'd be having a different conversation around in-housing. But one of the real learnings has been actually to accelerate that transformation for us, bringing a partner in like Oliver to come and bring in, established skill sets we didn't have, break down some of the silos, bring in the agility and mindset that we needed, being quite a product launch focused company in the past, has got us a long way forward very quickly. So I think that understanding what in-house can look like is something that we learned a lot on the last year with our partners at Oliver. So that was it from me.
Brilliant. Really, really enjoyed it. Thank you very much indeed for taking the time to share your kind of transformation story with us.